Krishna Arpanam Astu Shubham Bhuyat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Hari Om. Sri Krishna is answering the questions that Arjuna raised at the very beginning of this chapter. And in the last few verses we went through, one of the questions addressed was, what is the nature of God? Or rather, where is God? What is the nature of God? Brahman. So we've looked through those verses from verse number 13, 14, 15, 16. So various aspects of the divinity were explained to us. And today we look at verse number 17. So generally, to explain about Brahman, which is unmanifest, it's not very easy for us to explain something that has no shape, size, color, or any attributes. So generally, there are two allegories that are used to explain about the nature of Brahman. One is space. We went through that in the previous verse, that is verse number 16, where he gave the example of space. So if we understand the nature of space, we will understand what is the nature of Brahman. Example, we say space is everywhere. Therefore, Brahman is also everywhere. Space pervades everything. It is inside and outside of everything. Similarly, Brahman also pervades everything. Third, space supports everything. Everything is supported by space. So Brahman is also the support of the whole creation. Now, if one question will arise, if all the qualities of space are similar to qualities of Brahman, why don't we just say space is Brahman? Say space has all these qualities, Brahman has all these qualities. Why don't you just make it simple and say space is Brahman? Why is that? Because space is part of the five elements, and elements are inert, they've got no life. Whereas Brahman is consciousness, Brahman has got life. So that's the difference. Space has all the qualities of Brahman, but what it doesn't have is it has no consciousness. So the next quality that Krishna is going to explain in verse 17 is to compare the nature of light. We understand effulgence of light, we will understand the effulgence of Brahman also. So what does Krishna say here? So the word in Sanskrit in verse 17, if you look at the first line, there's a word there called touch. That word touch, actually the root word is tat, T-A-T, tat. And what does that tat mean? That tat refers to, in English, it is directly translated as that. But what it means in the language of the Upanishads, whenever we say tat, we are referring to the higher consciousness, the highest consciousness, that is Brahman. So the Lord says here, tat, that Brahman, what is the nature of that Brahman? Jyoti, it is the light. It is the light. Light of what? Api Jyotisam, of all the things that shine in this whole creation. Everything that shines, Brahman is the source of the light of everything in this creation. That means nothing in this creation can ever have any effulgence, can never shine if Brahman's effulgence is not there. So there's a similar verse if you go to chapter 15, the next chapter, that is verse 12, 13 and 14. There also Krishna spoke about this effulgence of Brahman. So chapter 15 is in page, verse 12, 13 and 14 is on page 274 and 275. So let's look at verse 12. Krishna said, the brilliance in the sun that illumines the whole world, the brilliance in the moon and that which is in the fire, know that as mine. So he is the very source of the brilliance of the sun, the moon, and the fires also in this world. Next verse he says, not only the brilliance of the sun, but even the brilliance of the moon, the Lord says, I permeate the whole uh, earth and I nourish the soil so that all the plants can also grow. So that also is brilliance which comes from the moon that nourishes the plants. That brilliance also is given by the Lord. Not only that, in verse 14 he says, even the digestive fire within you, within your system, that digests all the food, that digestive fire also, the Lord says, I am the digestive fire. So the Lord is there everywhere, externally and internally also. So the effulgence is, we know that the effulgence from the sun, the effulgence in the moon is borrowed from the sun. But now he's saying that even the effulgence in the sun is borrowed from the Lord himself also. In the Katha Upanishad also, the same idea occurs. Very beautiful verse in the Katha Upanishad. It says, Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi, tam eva bhantam anubhati sarvam, tasya bhasha sarvam idam vibhati. Very beautiful verse. It says, Suryo meaning sun, Tatra, where the sun, na bhati, it does not shine. So he is describing to you the nature of Brahman. He says Brahman is where the sun doesn't shine. Second, he says, na Chandra, even the moon doesn't shine. Na Tarakam, even the stars don't shine there. Nema Vidyuto Bhanti, even the flashes of lightning cannot shine there. Kutoyam Agnihi, what more to speak about the little fire? If the great effulgence like the sun and the moon cannot shine where the Lord is, what more to speak about the little fire? Then he goes on to say, O Lord, Tam Eva Bhantam, you are the very source of Anubhati Sarvam, of all the lights that shine. And Tasya Bhasha, because of your effulgence, everything shines in this world. So we now think about this description of the Lord, where the sun doesn't shine, where the moon doesn't shine, where fires don't illumine. It is not that it is a dark place, that the Lord is sitting somewhere in a cave or somewhere up in heaven where it is so dark. What it means is that your brilliance is so bright that no matter what light comes there, it cannot compare to your brilliance. It's just like if we take a candle and we go out in the sunlight and shine the candle in the sunlight, you can't even see the flame of the candle because the sun is shining so brightly. So it is told in very allegorical language. Therefore, what we need to understand, everything in this creation, from the sun, the stars, to humans, to animals, is made of matter. And matter is inert, it has no life. And it is only due to the presence of Brahman that there is life in this creation. There is movement, there is dynamism in this creation. So even the devas, we use often we hear the word devas, Surya Deva, Vayu Deva, Agni Deva, and all this. The word devas actually means the shining ones, because they illumine. What do they illumine? It is said that you have a deva for the eyes. So because the devas illumine your eyes, you can see. There are devas for the ears. So because the devas illumine your ears, you can hear. But where do the devas get their effulgence? They also get it from the Supreme Being also. So everything goes back to the Supreme Being. So he concludes this by saying, therefore, since the brilliance of the Lord is so bright, Uchate, it is said to be Param Tamasha, it is beyond darkness. So there can be no darkness where the Supreme Being is, because he shines everywhere. Okay. So now the question is, what are the other qualities of Brahman also he's giving here? So in the third line of the Sanskrit text, he gives further description of this Supreme Being. Jnanam, Neyam, Jnanagamyam. The three descriptions there. Jnanam is, Brahman is knowledge. Brahman is consciousness. And it knows everything that is happening in this creation. So Brahman is not something that is inert. It can see. It has no eyes, but it can see. He has no ears, but he can hear. He has all the experience of this whole creation. So Brahman is consciousness, aware of this whole creation. That's why we call Brahman as omniscient, right? He is everywhere. He knows what every being or every creature is doing in this world. And why does Brahman need to know this? Because the law of karma then will operate. Whatever action you do, the law of karma will give you the appropriate response also. So, Brahman is knowledge. That means he is consciousness, the first quality. Second, Brahman is Neyam. Neyam means it is the knowable. It is worthy of being known. For all spiritual seekers, Brahman is the highest truth to be known. So, why is Brahman the highest truth? Beyond that, there is nothing more to be known. Once you understand Brahman, you understand the nature of Brahman, there is no more higher truth for us to know. Just like if you know the nature of gold, you will know the nature or the essence of all ornaments. If you know the nature of clay, you will understand the essence of all the pots. If you understand the nature of Brahman, you will understand the essence of this whole creation also. So now we understand that knowledge of Brahman is important because it will lead us direct to liberation. Constantly in the Gita is mentioned, and in the Upanishads also, that unless you have knowledge of Brahman, you cannot get liberation. Okay. So now the question is, how do you get this? How do you get to know Brahman? Jnana Gamyam, that is the third quality. Jnana Gamyam means you can only be one with Brahman through knowledge. You can only attain Brahman through knowledge. And many of the other scriptures also say the same thing, especially if we look at Kaivalya Upanishad. Kaivalya Upanishad says you can only attain Brahman and attain moksha only through knowledge, na karmana, not through any amount of rituals that you do. No matter how many prayers you do, how many rituals you do, you can never attain Brahman. Na prajaya, not through your children. The more and more families you have, the more and more children you have, doesn't mean that you are going to attain Brahman. Because in fact, children cause bondage. They don't cause moksha. They lead us into more and more into bondage. Na danena, you cannot through donation, through charity, attain Brahman also. So not through through actions, not through rituals, through prayers, through charity, you can attain Brahman. Then how can you attain Brahman? The Upanishad says, Tyagena Amritatvam Anashu. Meaning, by renunciation alone, Tyagena, immortality is attained. So, what do you mean by renunciation? Renunciation means detachment, freedom from emotional attachment, clinging, leaning on people, things, situations, power, fame, position. It is called psychological weakness. And only knowledge will free us from all these things also. So, we have to remember whatever we have is a temporary gift from the Lord. It is given to us for a purpose. to educate us and for us to grow internally. We should not get attached to anything at all in this creation. So, uh, how do you prepare your mind? Okay, now we know that knowledge is important to know Brahman, to attain Brahman, and to attain moksha. How do I go about this path of knowledge? So, this has already been told to us in this chapter, verses 7 to 11. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In these 5 verses, Krishna gave us 20 qualities to practice. If you want to go on the path of knowledge, you must have these 20 qualities. They're very, very important. That will lead you to the path of knowledge and to succeed in the path of knowledge. Now comes the next most important question. In order for me to attain Brahman, do I have to travel somewhere to go and merge with him, to go and find him and meet him somewhere? So this verse gives us a very direct answer. Okay, it says, where does Brahman exist? Vishtitam. If you look at the last line of the Sanskrit text, Vishtitam, it exists where? Hridi, in the heart of sarvasya, of everyone. Whether it is moving or non-moving, everything in this creation, Brahman exists in the heart of everything. So now, Brahman is not separated from us by distance, right? It is within us and it is also outside us. It is in everything in this creation. Okay. So, first of all, let us understand, where does the heart exist? It says Brahman exists in the heart of all beings. What is this heart? We have to understand. It is not the physical organ, the heart. So again, if we go back to Kaivalya Upanishad, it explains to us very beautifully what is this heart. Kaivalya Upanishad is a very short Upanishad. You all can get it from the internet or so, or you can buy a book somewhere. Only 24 verses. And it is a dialogue between sage Ashvalayana and Brahma, the creator. Very beautiful Upanishad. It is said in the Upanishad that this Brahman or consciousness resides in the cave within us. Cave, guha, the word used is guha, cave. So, just like a cave, it is dark, without any light. In the same way, this cave refers to our, what does it refer to? What is beyond the mind? Intellect. So this cave refers to our intellect. So it says, just like the cave is dark, your intellect is also dark. What does it mean? What is the comparison? Cave is dark, your intellect is also dark. It means what? Ignorance, exactly. So as long as you're in the state of ignorance, Brahman is there. But because of your ignorance, you cannot realize Brahman, you cannot experience Brahman. So therefore, the only way you can know Brahman and experience Brahman is to remove this ignorance. And the only way you can remove ignorance is through knowledge. So the path of Jnana Yoga, as we have seen before, there are 3 stages which we have seen. The first stage is Shravanam, which means listening to spiritual lectures, reading scriptures. What does it do? Reading scriptures and listening to spiritual lectures, it increases our faith or Shraddha in the Lord. Okay? Then our faith is there. The more and more we read, the more faith and Shraddha we get in the Lord. Then the second stage is when we go into Mananam. We reflect on the knowledge of the scriptures, we introspect on it, we go deeper and deeper into the meaning of the scriptures, and we absorb the teachings. And what happens then? That Shraddha, the devotion we have, it intensifies, it gets stronger and stronger. The more and more you know about the Lord, the more and more your devotion intensifies. It becomes stronger. And finally, the third stage is Nididhyasanam, which is meditation, when we connect with this consciousness. So first 2 stages, you know about the consciousness. The third stage is meditation, when you connect with this consciousness. And then, what is that moksha? Moksha is dropping the notion that you are the body. Once you drop this ignorance that you are the body, that is the state of moksha already. You have attained the state of moksha because you have identified with your higher self. So, moksha is not a journey for us to travel, it is for us to drop our ignorance of who we are. Okay. So now Lord has given that last example of light. Now in verse 18, he concludes what he has covered so far. He says, Iti Uktam, in this way, Uktam has been spoken of what Lord says here, I spoken about Kshetram. Again, what is Kshetram? Kshetram is matter. Kshetram has got no life. Kshetram refers to everything which is in creation. That is called Kshetram. Another word for Kshetram is Prakriti. It's the same meaning. Okay, it is inert. It is called Prakriti or Kshetram. It's one and the same, or matter. So the Lord says, I've spoken about Kshetram. I've also spoken about Jnanam in verses 7 to 11. Jnanam meaning the virtues, the 20 virtues that will prepare your mind to go on the path of knowledge. Okay. And Lord says, I've also spoken about Niyam. Niyam is the goal of Brahman that we have to attain. That is the ultimate goal. So therefore, Krishna is saying now, I've covered all these subjects. Now, knowing all this, what is the purpose of it? So here he concludes by saying, Vijnaya, when you understand all this knowledge about matter, about consciousness, you know what is matter, you know what is consciousness. When you have knowledge of this and you understand the differences, what is the next thing he says? You have to start questioning now. Am I matter or am I consciousness? Because this body is made of matter, at the same time there is consciousness residing. So this is something we have to constantly question. It is not easy because body is something we can see, we can experience. So it is not easy for us to forget that we are the soul and not this body. So the Lord says, if you understand that, if you reflect on the knowledge, if you absorb the knowledge, then he says what happened? Mad Bhakta, my devotee, Upapadyate, becomes qualified, Mad Bhava, to attain my state, to become one with me. What is the state of Brahman or consciousness? It is Satchit Ananda. That is what is given in the Upanishads. Once you identify with the state of Brahman, you yourself become Brahman. What is Brahman, nature of Brahman? Satchit Ananda. What is Sat? Sat means existence. Chit means consciousness. Ananda means bliss. You reach that state of existence, consciousness, bliss. You identify with that. So the Lord says, my devotee attains my state, becomes one with me. Okay? To understand the difference between matter and consciousness also. So he has concluded that in verse number 18. Now in verse number 19, he answers Arjuna's two other queries. What is Prakriti and what is Purusha? So again, don't get confused with the terms. What is Prakriti? Prakriti is nothing but matter. What is Purusha? Purusha is nothing but consciousness. So in this whole creation, there are only two things for us to know. Prakriti and Purusha. There is a third element also that we need to know, which is called the gunas, but he will take it up in the next chapter 14. Okay. So for this purpose, we will now try to understand what is Prakriti and what is Purusha. So Lord says, with thee, may you know, api, for certain, that ubhav means both. What are the two? Prakriti and Purusha. Now Lord is telling us something about what is Prakriti, what is Purusha. I'm sure if you all have read, other spiritual material, you would have come across this term very often, Prakriti, Purusha, Prakriti, Purusha. So now Lord is explaining what is Prakriti, what is Purusha. Okay. So he says, Ubhao, both Prakriti and Purusha, what is the nature of this? He says, both are anadi. Anadi means without any beginning. Nobody knows when Purusha started, when Prakriti started. It was right at the very beginning of time. Nobody knows when. So he says they are anadi, they are without any beginning. That means Prakriti and Purusha have been going on and on in this creation, on and on and on. They've been going on. Nobody knows how long it has been going on. But we have to understand one thing, that there are two entities. One is Prakriti and what is Purusha. Okay. So Prakriti also has got another name which you may have heard. It is called Maya. Okay, but we won't get too much into that discussion about Maya, so not to confuse everybody. Okay. So Prakriti is subject to change. Okay. Our bodies come from Prakriti. Whatever different types of bodies we have, it comes from Prakriti. Purusha is the consciousness that does not change at all. So just keep this in mind. Okay. Now, he says both are eternal, both are without any beginning. Okay. Now he tells us what we should know. He says, Vidhi, you should know that vikarams, the modifications of what? The gunas. Now he talks a little bit about the gunas, which he will go more intensively in chapter 14. Here he's just introducing to us. He said, know that modifications, vikarams, what are modifications that Prakriti undergoes? Our body grows, it decays, and then it perishes. Everything in this creation undergoes modifications. Number one. Number two, all of us are different. We have different looks, different color, different characteristics. So all of us are different in many aspects. So where do all these differences come from? The Lord says they come from the three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Another very important point we must understand in this verse, he says, where are these three gunas? Prakriti Sambhavan. Prakriti Sambhavan means they are what we call, they are born of Prakriti. Now, when he tells us they are born of Prakriti, means they have nothing to do with Purusha. Purusha is pure consciousness. It cannot be subject to change. Only our bodies, which are made of Prakriti, matter, are subject to change because of the three gunas. So, you can also see this in the personality of people. Some people like to sit down quietly and meditate, read the scriptures. What is their nature? Sattva. Some people like to attend parties, they like loud noise, loud music, very outgoing. They are what type of nature? Rajasic. And some people just like to sleep and eat and be lazy, that is tamasic. So these three gunas are in all of us. We have all these three gunas, but always one guna will, what we call, dominate the other two gunas, and that will be your personality. Okay. So he says the gunas are born of Prakriti. So two things we know now. One is Prakriti and Purusha are eternal, and the three gunas are in Prakriti but not in Purusha. Okay. Now let us look at the four main differences of Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, to understand the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, there are generally four differences. First thing is, Purusha is consciousness principle is changeless. You must always keep in mind this. Purusha consciousness is always changeless. Whereas Prakriti is always continuously subject to change. That is the first difference. Second difference, Purusha is consciousness. That means it has got life. Prakriti is inert matter. It has got no life. There's a second difference. Third difference, Purusha is free from all attributes. There is no form, shape, size, color. Purusha is just pure. Whereas Prakriti has got attributes, okay, all different shapes, sizes, colors. And finally, Purusha has got independent existence, whereas Prakriti is dependent on Purusha for its existence. Example, when the body comes into being, it is because of Purusha that the body has got life. But when the body goes away, what happens to Purusha? When you cremate the body, what happens to Purusha? Does it also get cremated? It still exists. So this consciousness does not depend on the matter, but matter depends on consciousness for its existence. So these are the four main examples given in the Upanishads. Okay. Now starting from verse 20, he starts describing the nature of Prakriti and the nature of Purusha. Okay. So first he says, verse 20, Karya. The word Karya here refers to the gross body. Our gross body is Karya. He says this gross body, Karya, and you have another body which is called Karana. So how many bodies we have? We have Karya, which is the gross body, and Karana is the subtle body, which is your mind and your intellect. Okay. So what is this gross body and subtle body? He says they are the Karatritve, they are the agents of Prakriti. They are the cause of Prakriti. Now, we need to understand this, okay? When the whatever actions we perform, they leave an impression in our subtle body, okay? And that whatever actions you do now will leave an impression in your subtle body. This subtle body will be the cause of your next birth. What kind of gross body you get, what kind of environment you get, what kind of what you call parents, siblings you get, all that, and what is your nature when you are born, it all depends on your actions which are registered in your what we call subtle body. So the gross and the subtle body are caused by your own actions. This is a very important point. Okay. What about Purusha? What role does Purusha play? He explains in this verse. Purusha is the hetu, the cause of bhoktritve, the experience of what? Sukha dukhanam. So all that happiness and sorrow, everything up and down that you're going through, Purusha is the experiencer. Now again, very careful. There's a difference between the experiencer and the one who gets affected. Purusha, because Purusha is in your body, you see your body is inert, it is matter, right? If there is no consciousness, can you experience happiness and sorrow? Can you experience anything in life? You cannot, right? So Purusha helps you to experience. Purusha also experiences what you are experiencing. But the difference is you get affected, Purusha does not get affected. That is the difference. Okay. Purusha is the weakness which is going to explain in the next verse, verse 22. What is Purusha? So he says, Purusha is the cause or the reason why you can experience sukha, dukkha. All the various experiences are because of the presence of Purusha in your body. Okay. Now, what are the result of all these experiences? When you experience happiness, sorrow, victory, defeat, what do you call all the various experiences? What is the end result? He explains now in verse number 21. He says, Prakritishta, seated in Prakriti, this Purusha experiences whatever the body is experiencing. That's why it is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the body. It experiences everything that you are experiencing. It is consciousness. Okay. So everything that you are going through, the ups and downs of life, is experienced by this Purusha. But due to our ignorance, we identify with this body and we get entangled in this world. Whereas Purusha also experiences but does not get entangled in this world. Now, to understand this, there is a beautiful Upanishad called the Mundaka Upanishad. It gives an allegory of two birds on a tree. Okay? It says there is a tree, and on this tree, there are two birds which are sitting. One is sitting higher up, one is sitting lower. Okay? What is the difference between these two birds? The lower bird hops from branch to branch of the tree and he eats or enjoys the fruit of the tree. So sometimes the fruit is sweet, it enjoys. Then he goes to another branch and bites on the fruit, it turns out to be bitter. And that whole time it goes around dancing from one branch, enjoying the sweet fruit or suffering the bitter fruit. That is the lower bird. What does the higher bird do on the tree? The higher bird sits on the tree. It is watching this lower bird hopping around but does not get involved. Now, that is the allegory. So, how does it apply to us? What does this tree represent? Very interesting way it puts in the Mundaka Upanishad. What does the tree represent? We have to start thinking now. What do the two birds represent? What do the fruits, the sweet and the bitter fruits, represent? Huh? What? Okay, I'll tell you. The tree represents our body. In this body, the lower bird is called the jiva. The jiva is the deluded mind that identifies with the body. So the jiva, thinking I'm the body, hops from tree to tree, experiences different experiences. Sometimes bitter fruit, sometimes sweet fruit. Sometimes we have happy experience, sometimes we have bitter experience. That is called the jiva bird that sits in our body. But in this body, there is a higher bird called the Atman. The Atman is also in this body. It is watching all our actions that we are going through, the ups and downs of life. It is silently watching. So one day, this Jiva bird goes through all the different experiences and then he gets fed up and then he starts looking upwards. And then he sees the Atman bird and then he starts to question, who is this Atman bird? And the minute he realizes that actually I am the Atman bird, then he loses his association with the body. So right now we are Jiva or Atman? All of us. Huh? We are Jivas. We are hopping around from one experience to another. The Atman is there within us, but we cannot identify. We do not know how to identify with it. So we go through life like that. So the same thing now he is saying here, the allegory of the two birds. He says that because of all these experiences, we have happy experiences, bitter experiences. So what happens? Sat asat yoni janmashu. Very interesting. Sat asat yoni janmashu. We do good actions, we do bad actions, we do all kinds of actions. As a result of these actions, what causes these actions? What causes us to do good action? What causes us to do bad actions? Is it the Atman? Does Atman cause us to do action? Then what causes us to do these actions? The gunas. Because the body is matter, it cannot act. So it is when Atman energizes the gunas influence the body, and therefore you perform good or bad actions. Okay. Now, as a result of this, what happens? He says here, Sat Asat Yoni Janmashu. Yoni means we take birth. Janmashu, we take birth in the wombs of Sat or Asat. Sat means either if you do good actions, you will have a good birth in the next life. If you do bad actions now, you will have a terrible situation in the next life. So now, who is the cause of all this? Who is the cause of all your wrong actions? You blame gunas straight away. Gunas are causing the action. But what is our problem? We identify with this body, we identify with this mind, and therefore we get entangled in all our actions. So it is the identification that is causing all our problems. We are acting as a jiva, so we are entangled with this body. But the minute we say we are Atman, then we become a weakness. What is Atman is going to be beautifully explained in verse 22, the next verse. So the Lord says, therefore, we continue to take birth in the right environment or in the wrong environments because of our actions. And this is the very cause. Because of our ignorance, this is the cause of our continuous births, birth after birth after birth. Okay. So now he tells us what is this Atma, which we should be identifying it. What is the nature of this Atma? In verse 22, he gives us all these qualities of the Atma here. Okay. So he says, Asmin Dehe. Asmin means in this Dehe, in this body, is the Para Purusha, is the higher consciousness, which is Atman, which is Brahman, is all one and the same thing. So please keep in mind, Brahman, Atman, Purusha are all one and the same. Just different terminology is used. Okay. So where is this Purusha? He says, Asmin Dehe. It is residing in your body. Okay. And what does it do? What does this Purusha do in your body? He has a role to play. So, first of all, he says, this Purusha residing in your body, the first role he plays is Upadrashta. Upadrashta. Upa means near, Drashta means witness. He is the most closest who is witnessing all your actions. Witness, doesn't say he participates, it doesn't say he instigates your actions. He is only witnessing. So the role of the Atman in this body is to just witness all our actions. Okay. And he's the most closest, therefore he can know what's in your mind also and what are your actions also. Okay. Second thing is Anumanta. That is the second role he plays. Anumanta means he permits you to do your action. If you want to do good, he doesn't stop. If you want to do bad, he doesn't stop. He does not influence at all. Whatever you want to do, he allows you to do. So that's why we as human beings, we have that, what we call that freedom to choose our actions. And therefore, we must choose our actions wisely, right? So he's the permitter. The Purusha does not instigate any action. Yet he does not prevent us. If you want to do bad action, that is your choice. Okay. Then the third quality he gives here is he is the Bharata. He is the sustainer. What do we mean by that? Because of his effulgence, your body has got life. Your body is able to perform actions, is able to think, able to rationalize. So he is the Bharata. He is the sustainer. Next quality, he is the Bhokta. He also experiences everything that you are experiencing also. But he is never affected. You are affected, but he is never affected. When I say you means who? You means the Jiva bird, the deluded mind who identifies with the body. That is the you. Okay. Then the next quality, what is this consciousness in the body? He is also known as Maheshwara. He is the great Lord. So see, either you call him Brahma, Brahman, you call him Maheshwara, you call him Atma, you call him Purusha, they're all one and the same, they are consciousness. And finally he says, this consciousness is also known as Paramatma, the Supreme Self. The Supreme Self. And he says this is the same, these descriptions which Krishna is giving here, he says, Iti Api Ukta. They are the same descriptions that are given in the Upanishads also. Exactly the same description of consciousness is found in the Upanishads, is also given by Krishna in the Gita. So there's no difference at all. Okay, the Gita actually refers, it does not contradict the Upanishads. It doesn't go against the Upanishads. Okay, whatever is the knowledge there is also given here. So the Lord says now, we have to understand that who are you now? Are you the body with the gunas doing the actions, or are you the uh, Purusha who's identified in verse 22? Now you have to decide who are you. And it is definitely not an easy thing, because you have to constantly keep on reminding yourself. See, every time you get insulted, somebody insults you, what happens? When somebody insults you, what happens? What is our natural reaction? We retaliate back, right? We shout back at that person, or we throw something at that person, or we feel very hurt. Why do you go through that? Because as long as you identify yourself as this body, you will feel hurt anytime anybody insults you. You will feel bad anytime anybody says something bad about you. But if you can tune your mind, the minute you are insulted, if you can tune your mind and say, I am Atman, I'm not this body, what happens to you? You can experience the change in your mental attitude. Anytime now, whatever you face from the world, you just have to understand, I am Atman, I'm not this body. I'm Atman, I'm not this body. That is a constant reminder. If you're able to attain this state, you will find that your mind is not disturbed at all. It is not easy, but this is what the scriptures are telling us. As long as you identify with the body, you will get upset. Okay? At the same time, somebody praises you. Is it good or bad also? Huh? We don't want people to insult us, but praise also. Huh? Yeah, so what happens again if we identify with this body, we feel very proud, very arrogant, we get carried away. But if we say, I am the Atma, I am not the body is being praised, I am not being praised, I am the Atma. The body is being insulted, I am not being insulted, I am Atma. So what happens to our mind? What the sister said, equipoise, samatvam. That description Krishna gave in chapter 2. What is yoga? What is union with God? Samatvam yoga uchyate. To attain that tranquility of the mind, that evenness of the mind, Krishna said that is the union with God. That is what is called yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate, chapter 2. So now he has explained to us our real identity, which is in verse 22. Now in verse 23 he says, he gives us the what we call the benefit of identifying with Purusha. The more and more we identify Purusha, what is the benefit? He explains to us there. So now we must understand there are generally three conditions that affect our mind. That is what is mentioned in most of the scriptures. The three conditions that affect our mind are shoka, which is sorrow. Second is bhayam, or fear. And the third is moha, or delusion. These are generally the three qualities of the mind that affect us. Okay. So let us look at each of the three. What is sorrow normally about? When we experience sorrow, normally what is it about? About the present, past, or future? What is sorrow about? What do we always regret and cry over? Past, right? It's past. It's never the present, because it's not happened yet. It's never about the future. So sorrow we experience normally something, our regrets, or something we experience in the past. Okay. Regrets, failures, the trials and tribulations we have gone through. What is fear about? Past, present, or future? Future. So sorrow is generally about your past. Fear is generally about the unknown future. What is going to happen? Is it going to do like that? Is it going to happen like that? So that is future. Uncertainties of health, relationships, career, financial obligations, etc. And now, what is delusion all about? If sorrow is about the past and fear is about the future, delusion is about what? About the present. So, present delusion, according to our scriptures, we have two types of delusion. See, delusion is seeing what is there, you don't see it as it is. That is delusion. Okay, you're a deluded person, we say. So, what is our delusion about? According to scriptures, the lower level of delusion is when we get deluded about what is dharma and adharma, what is the right way of living and wrong way of living. Now, you may say it's very clear, I shouldn't do this, I know what is dharma, but many people get confused. They feel stealing is okay. They feel lying is okay, cheating is okay, doing scam. Now we have a lot of scams going around. People think it's okay. They can take away people's life savings and bankrupt them literally, but they feel happy about it. So they don't understand or are not able to differentiate between dharma and adharma. Okay, so that is the first delusion. And even we sometimes get deluded. We don't know how to decide which is the right path to take also. Okay. And then there is a higher delusion, which the scriptures say is called Atma Anatma. Our delusion of whether am I the body or am I the soul. So that is delusion on the higher stage. Now let us look at Arjuna's problem. What was Arjuna's problem? What is the title of the first chapter? Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means despondency. What is despondency? Despondency is a mixture of sorrow and fear. So he was fearful about the outcome of the war and he felt sorrowful about killing all his relatives and gurus and all that. Okay. So what happened is, in order to get out of his delusion, what did Arjuna want to do? He wanted to run away and become a sannyasi, which he thought will give him peace of mind. But yet, what did Krishna tell him? Don't run away from the battle. Address what you have to face, what you have to go through, you have to go through. By running away, you're not going to run away from your karma. You can run away now, but somewhere or other it will face you again. So, Krishna gave him all the teachings to get him out of his, his sorrow and all this. But the interesting thing is, when Krishna gave him the entire teachings of the Gita, everything he completed giving those teachings, Krishna only asked him one question. Do you know what is the one question he asked him? After giving him all the teachings of the Gita, look at chapter 18, verse 72. Just one question only Krishna wanted to know. After giving him all the teachings, he did not say, has your sorrow and fear gone after listening to my teachings? What did he say? Has your delusion gone? That's all he wanted to know. Because once your delusion is gone and you identify yourself with Atma and not this body, your sorrow also goes, your fear also goes. So sorrow and fear, the root cause again comes back to delusion. So that's why Krishna only asked him one question. Has your delusion been destroyed? Pranashtas. Delusion is sammoha. And what caused this delusion? Krishna also says in chapter 18, verse 72. He tells Arjuna, what is it that caused your delusion? Your delusion is born out of ajnanam, which is what? Ignorance. So therefore, to get out of your state of delusion, what is the remedy? Only remedy is knowledge. So knowledge removes your delusion. Once your delusion is removed, your sorrow and your fear both also get extinguished. So our whole problem comes back again to the delusion also. So now in this verse, Krishna is going to tell us what is the result if we go through this path of what we call jnana yoga, knowledge, what will be the result also. So we have to understand, as you say, the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, between matter and consciousness also. Okay. So we will, I think, come back next week and we'll look at this verse. Okay. Verse number 23. I need to say, announce also, next week there won't be a class. I'll be out of town. So we will resume class back on the 22nd. Okay. So please take note of that. And with the prayer. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं